I will be teaching you a chess secret, and once you know this, your rating will increase with a couple 100 points. So it is very important that you watch this entire video so you can learn everything that I will tell you, and then also you need to try this exact strategy in one of your games as well after watching this video. So I will be demonstrating this here by playing against a 2300 rated. So this strategy is something you can use with white or with black, and it doesn't matter what opening you play. I always try to keep the openings extremely simple and basically just follow opening principles, meaning put a pawn in the center, protect it with a pawn, develop my kingside pieces, and castle as quickly as possible. So what is this strategy that I am going to teach you? One of the biggest mistakes that I see so many chess players make, especially lower rated chess players, is that they think that they have to try to defeat their opponents, which is completely untrue. What you have to try is to not defeat yourself. And what I mean with that is you have to try to just not blunder. And that should be your biggest priority. So I will be teaching you first some strategies to guarantee that you will stop blundering in your games. At least most of your blunders will be avoided if you use this strategy. And the first thing that we need to do is every single time your opponent makes a move, like my opponent is playing knight to c3 here, before you do anything, you need to get into the habit of always first looking at their last move. I always right-click their piece to change the color. I also right-click and drag to see where it can go to. And I do this and I try to ask myself the question, what would white do if it was their turn again and I didn't get to do anything? Okay, well, what they are telling me is that they are putting some pressure in the center. Okay, so nothing in particular we have to worry about, which means we can just continue with normal development. And as I said for the opening, it's just about developing the pieces and having a solid center. This is a move I'm not really worried about. My opponent is not threatening to do anything on the next move, so I am just going to continue with my strategy, which is to keep it very simple. Build the pawn pyramid here, and then just develop the kingside pieces and castle as quickly as possible. They play the bishop here. So again, before I do anything, what are they actually doing? They are pinning my knight, so I'm going to protect it and also unpin. So throughout the video, we will keep going through these steps to avoid blunders. So that is our number one priority. And you might be asking, well, if all we do is avoid blunders, how are we ever going to win the game? Well, that is where the second part of the strategy comes in. If we don't blunder first, then most of the time your opponent will be the player who blunders first. So what we need to do is every time they make a move, first we double check to see what they are doing. Here they are attacking a pawn, but it's not really a problem. It's protected twice already. And then if we see nothing that we need to solve, no problems were created for us, then what we need to do is you need to treat every position that you have like a chess puzzle, which means you have to look at this with the same eyes that you would use to solve a chess puzzle. So you need to try to think that there is a winning move here and try to find the winning move. That is our plan. How do you do that? You just simply have to do a CCT check, which means you need to look at every single check first. That's the C. Every single check. We don't have any. Then you need to look at every single capture that we have. We have a capture here, pawn takes c4, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. And then you need to look at every single threat that we have. And a threat would be attacking a higher value piece with a lower value piece, or attacking something that is unprotected. What do I mean with that? Attacking this pawn, attacking this bishop with the pawn, attacking this bishop with the pawn, or attacking this pawn that is unprotected. Those are the threats in the position. And if you do CCT, you are literally going to find every single possible tactic in the position all of the time, if there is one at least. That is important. Okay, so what move are we going to play here? Well, we have a bunch of things we can do. We could play h6, could lead to a trade. That's fine. We could play pawn takes c4, which they can recapture with the bishop. Or we could play queen to b6 to try to attack this pawn, and then they will probably have to move the queen somewhere to protect it. So which one are we going to go for? I will go for h6 because I have a general rule that you never want your opponent to have pieces on your side of the chessboard. And this is also something that helps with blunders. So you should try to treat these first 4 ranks as your property. You don't want your opponent to have pieces here. If you allow them to have 1 piece there, it will be okay. As soon as they get 2 or 3 pieces there, yeah, that will be game over. You will be losing. So we need to try to eliminate their pieces there as quickly as possible, which is what we did. Okay, we had an exchange here, and that is fine. They castle, which is a move that we don't need to worry about. There is not really anything special here. Okay, so we need to treat every position like a puzzle. So we need to look at checks. We don't have any. Captures, we have a capture. Let's go through this. This capture, which is actually something that you could play. This is something that you could play. And we need to look at threats, attacking a high value piece with a lower value piece, which I think the same move still applies. These 2 threats. Oftentimes, especially in the beginning of the game, even though that we are treating the position like a puzzle, there will be no solution, meaning there will not be a specific way that guarantees us a win. This is a good example of that. Like, we can take this pawn on c4, but they will just recapture with the bishop. Maybe we could play b5, but they can go back with the bishop, and we are not really achieving anything there. It's the same with moving the queen to b6. Yes, we are attacking a pawn, but they have so many ways to protect it that we are not really achieving something. And it's important, if you go through the CCT steps, it's not because you see a check, a capture, or a threat that you necessarily have to play it. You have to calculate it, but you don't always have to play it. If you don't see any true benefit from it, we don't play it. Well, what do we do then? We add another step to our system. CCTO. Check, capture, threat, optimize. So the next move we need to do is we need to optimize, which means we need to improve our position in a way that also guarantees that we won't lose material because of our move. How do we do that? First of all, you want to get every piece into the game, which means these pieces still need to be improved. Plus, we want to minimize the amount of pawn moves we make, because every pawn move always creates weaknesses and opportunities for the opponent to attack. So what could we do? I will play knight d7. This is a development move, so I see this as an optimization move, and I was sure that this was not a problem. Okay, they capture back, so we need to take here. We can either take with the c pawn, or we can take with the e pawn. The question is, which pawn is the best pawn here? The answer is to always capture this with your e pawn. And we can simply understand why. We have to think both of these captures look very similar, but they create a totally different pawn structure. If we take with this, what we are doing is we are giving our opponent an open file that they can use immediately. We are also giving them the b5 square where they can put a knight or a bishop. So this is actually a move that helps our opponent to get their pieces more active, which is not what we want to play. On the other hand, if we take here, we still have control over that square. This file is not actually open, and we also opened up a diagonal for the bishop. So that is how you can always figure out which capture is the best one, by just thinking, am I helping myself or am I helping my opponent? And it just comes down to the piece activity after the capture. Okay, so the opponent plays e4, and this is a brilliant moment for us, because we need to, of course, always first look at their move and think, what is this doing? Well, if I play any random move, like moving the rook over here, the question is always, what would the opponent do next? Well, I think that's pretty obvious. They would play pawn to e5, which would be terrible for us. The bishop would be under attack. We need to go back. We are losing this f6 square for our pieces, and this will be dangerous because white can start using multiple pieces to attack on the king side, and we won't be able to get any defenders there because this pawn is really stopping our plans. So this is one of those moments where they play a move that's so important that yes, we need to deal with this. The only thing we can do to avoid them pushing is basically to capture. Okay, and they capture this with the knight. All right. So again, I am thinking, what is their potential strategy? Their strategy might be to take my bishop. And I have this general rule that I try to follow, which is to never give away a bishop for a knight unless if there is some clear compensation. And that's just part of my general chess philosophy, especially if the center is quite open, meaning there are not that many pawns in the center. There's actually only one. So I will be going out of my way to play this move bishop e7 because I didn't want the bishop to be captured, and this bishop is actually a very good piece here looking at these two diagonals. Okay, so the opponent plays queen c2. Always do this check first. What is this doing? This is protected, and they are also lining up to give a check potentially. Is that a problem? Not really, because we would be able to move the king. But it's very good that we are aware that basically white is building up tremendous pressure. They have 4 pieces that are all aiming towards the king side, which means we don't really want that, so we might need to trade some pieces to remove attackers. Okay, as always, we need to treat this position as a puzzle. We have no checks, we have no captures, we have no threats, so I need to optimize. I will play knight f6, which is a very simple optimization move. The knight goes to a better square and the bishop opens up. Capture, capture, everything is fine. We already calculated this. And as I was going to show you, this check doesn't matter because we just move over the king. If the pieces were the other way around and the queen was up front, well, that would be a problem. Then we would get checkmated. So we made sure that didn't happen here. What did they play? They played queen to c5. So again, what is this doing? It's attacking a pawn, which means the rook cannot simply move. And other than that, I don't really see a problem. Everything else is quite well protected. Okay. So do we have any checks? No. Do we have captures? Yes. We could try to capture here, but we have a problem. We only have 2 attackers and they have 2 defenders, so that doesn't work. But this is giving us some plans for the middle game, because this, what my opponent has here, is just an isolated pawn. This pawn is all by itself, which means we can try to win this pawn if we just remove defenders and keep adding attackers. Okay, so no checks, no captures. Do we have threats? Well, you could say b6 is a threat, but we lose a pawn. You could say bishop e7 is a threat, but they can just simply move the queen. And that's what I mean with those empty threats. We don't want to play the empty threats. What I will play is this move, bishop to g4, which, first of all, I call this optimization because we improve a piece. The second thing is we were actually threatening something there. We were threatening to take, and then this pawn on d4, oops, d4 here, would be hanging. So that was my threat. The opponent solved it by going knight to e5. Okay, so knight to e5 attacks our bishop. All right, and that's based on this pawn as well. Okay, my first question is, can we just take this knight? Because if they take back, we win a piece. So that would be simple. But they can also take back with the queen. And yeah, I don't think we really win a piece. The question is, should we make that move? Should we make this move if they can take with the queen? The answer is no. Why? Well, again, we talked about this before. We are giving away a bishop for a knight for no reason, which we never want to do that, basically. So that means we will need to save this bishop because blunder check always comes first. I will be going to this square, which I think is a good square because the bishop is safe and it's also protecting that pawn which the knight was attacking on the previous move. They play queen here. I don't think that's a good move for them. First of all, it doesn't do anything. Second, they voluntarily put their queen on the same diagonal as our bishop, which means this could lead to trouble for them. So do we have checks? No. Do we have captures? Yes, sure, we can still do this, but it's not a trade we want. Do we have any threats? And I think we might have a threat here, but it's a little bit more complicated. So first of all, it doesn't matter if you don't find the CCT move, check capture or threat every time if you are still a beginner. That just means you still have to practice your tactical vision, which means you should go to pegasuschess.com because that is my free chess course platform and I have an entire tactics course teaching you every single pattern that you need to know. So once you have gone through that course, you will see every possibility in your games. Because I see something here, but I don't think it's necessarily easy. So What I am thinking about playing is the move c5. And c5 is complicated. c5 is a bit of a deflection tactic, I should say, deflection tactic. What does that mean? Well, if they take the pawn, they are losing, because we can, first of all, we deflect the pawn as a defender from the knight. Then we take the knight, which eliminates a defender from the bishop. And if they take the bishop, we deflected the queen from the defense of the bishop. So this would win as a piece. We are just up a bishop in this, well, up a bishop in exchange for a pawn. So they cannot take, at least not with the pawn. If they don't do anything, then we can just take this, and that's a free pawn that we can win. And if they take this with, oops, not that. If they take this with the queen, the problem is going to be for them that we still deflected the queen from the defense of that bishop, which still means that we might be able to take this knight, force them to take with the pawn, and then also take that bishop for free. So all we need to do is we need to move the queen. We need to force their queen to move in a way that it's not protecting the knight and it's also not protecting the bishop. So how can we do that? I'm looking at, oops, that's not what I wanted to play. I'm looking at moves like b6 and rook to c8. So if we play the move b6, can the queen still protect the knight? Maybe if the queen goes here, but then we have a6, and I think now they are in trouble. Now they don't have a way to keep an eye on everything. But they can go to c3, and this basically resets the position, but we just lost the pawn. The other plan we have is the move rook c8. So can the queen still keep an eye on the knight and the bishop? Well, the bishop is going to be rough. Maybe they can go to this square, where they protect the knight and the bishop. So we still need to see if we can deflect their piece. Can we force their piece to move again, to see if they have to let go of those pieces? First of all, actually, we would be winning that pawn. So I think that's already easy. So that's actually just a free pawn we have there. Maybe they go to b4. Something like that. But then again, we take this and we take the bishop. So the conclusion is, from a lot of calculation, that at least I think the move c5 followed up with the move rook c8 wins, because this is a very complex deflection tactic. Okay, so they are taking here, which is fine as well, because all we wanted to do was deflect the queen so that we can take this knight, so that we can take this bishop. So we are winning a piece, but we did give away, I think, 3 pawns for the piece. So we will really need to prove that the piece is superior, which is the case. And if you think, wow, this tactic is so difficult, I would have never seen this, make sure to go to pegasuschess.com. If you take my course, you will be able to do this as well in your games. Okay. So we still have to do CCT. We still have to do CCT, checks, captures, and threats. We have a threat, and we are also threatening to win the pawn once the queen moves. Okay. They are offering us a trade of queens, which is interesting. How do you know if you should trade or not? Well, it all depends on the material. If you are up material, you should trade. Here we are up material because we have that bishop and they don't, plus we win the pawn. So this, very obviously, yes, we needed to trade. I was actually also trying to see if we could win that pawn as well. Okay. What do we do here? This is just an endgame, so I will be going a little bit more quickly. But basically what we need to do in the endgame is just try to activate both of our rooks. See if we can try to win that pawn. Make sure that we don't get back rank mated, but it's not really a problem here because we can always move the king. So I'm just looking to see if I can do something to win that pawn. Maybe bishop here is actually a fun move. Attacks the rook and attacks the pawn at the same time. Okay, and then maybe rook a2, because all I am really trying to do is just see if we can force more trades. Forcing more trades is the plan. We don't really want them to be able to keep pushing all of the time. So let's blockade this pawn in a way so that it's also stuck on a light square. That is the strategy. Okay, the check doesn't matter. We have our escaping square. Now I just need to see if I can get my bishop to somehow participate to try to win that pawn. They are offering us a trade of rooks, which is fine because our bishop can still keep an eye on this. So all that we need to do, we have a very simple endgame, is we need to activate our king. Yeah, we need to activate our king. And we just need to go and grab that pawn. I do have to pay a little bit attention to what's happening with their pawns, but I don't think they will be able to promote, because if they push, we just have too many pieces stopping this. So king b6. Okay, and they play king here. So what we need to do is we need to keep the bishop on this diagonal, because we also want to stop them from creating a passed pawn. This doesn't really matter. We can just take, and then we can take the pawn. All right. And when you have an extra piece in the endgame, just like this, you are always going to win the endgame. You are just always going to win the endgame, because your opponent will always be in what is known as Zugzwang. So I actually will put this on a light square. I'm trying to get their king to move, and I always have a bishop, so I can always use my bishop to force their king to move. It doesn't really matter here if we lose this pawn, because we are basically blocking their king, and their king is just stuck here on this final rank. Let's see, let's give a check. Let's put the bishop here, and this is just a very simple win, because they can never push the pawn, otherwise we take it, and we are just going to be moving our king. And then we are going to try to move our pawn there. If we move the bishop, we drop the pawn. If we move the bishop, we drop the pawn. So I might actually need to get closer with the king again and force their king out first. Okay. Bishop h5, I think, is the move. This is actually not an easy position, because we are a little bit stuck, but this should be winning. What I think I need to do is, I think the only hope lies in maybe sacrificing that bishop. We will see. Or trying to keep it alive here. Okay. We can move the pawn. Yeah, and then I think we just need to sacrifice that bishop. And then this is just going to be, well, they don't even take it, but even if they take it, that's going to be a winning king and pawn endgame for sure. So we can just make a queen and then do the queen's kiss checkmate. So really try to use this strategy in your next game and let me know how it went.